These last couple of days have not been good to investors. They've seen steep drops in the market thanks to the tit-for-tat tariffs that are between President Trump and the world, really. This is the Dow on Friday, which closed after shedding more than 2,200 points. Where the Dow is concerned, Friday's drop was the biggest decline since the COVID pandemic, and the first time ever it's dropped more than 1,500 points on back-to-back days. The S&P dropped more than 5,000 points Friday, the largest decline again since the pandemic. And the Nasdaq dropped nearly 6% Friday after shedding another nearly 6% on Thursday. Like we said, this has just really not been a great day for investors. So to bring some context into the drops and all the tariffs, Ryan Frazier is with us this morning. Good morning.
Hey, Lauren.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. So let's start with, what are the main drivers of this? We know we're talking tariffs, but really let's get specific here.
Well, yeah, we are talking tariffs, but it's a little deeper than that, right? You have these massive tariffs that have been kind of deployed by the U.S. to almost every country, but it's the possibility of a prolonged trade war. The fact that countries like China are now retaliating with their own set of tariffs and export controls on rare earth minerals, which are driving a great deal of uncertainty amongst investors and businesses alike about what's going to happen. Am I going to continue to be able to hire, expand, invest? Should I pull back? And these things are driving a huge shock to the stock market. As you mentioned, we're seeing losses today over the past couple of days that we haven't seen in years. And so the uncertainty is the biggest driver, with the trade war and the possibility of a prolonged trade war being the biggest immediate driver.
And like you said, there are certainly a lot of impacts. Now, who bears the brunt of all of this?
So the bottom line is everybody's going to feel some pain. The large institutional investors, of course, who manage large sums of money and deploy that money around the globe, are feeling pain. But it's important to understand it's not just Wall Street that's going to feel this. Main Street, those of us who live on Main Street, if you have retirement accounts, if you're active in the stock market, if you're trying to figure out what business decisions you're going to make, you're all going to feel this pain, at least in the near term. The question is what happens as this kind of plays out? Do things start to settle? Do they start to negotiate? And are we able to find some solutions that provide, again, more certainty in the market so that people start to get comfortable? Lauren, the challenge is that we already have stubbornly high inflation and interest rates, and you couple that with the possibility of a prolonged trade war and the prospects for weakened economic growth drive businesses and investors away. They pull back, and if that happens, unfortunately, we are all going to feel it.
Especially here in Colorado, too. I want to kind of scale it back to here in our state. How are businesses in our state going to be impacted by this?
Well, think about some of our major industries in Colorado. So let's start with agriculture. You have folks like farmers who export wheat and beef, and the possibility that their ability to export into those markets will be limited could impact farmers in our rural communities greatly. Technology, which relies on a lot of component parts, which will potentially go up in price, though that industry could be affected. Manufacturing, if you're exposed to the international supply chains and the ability to get certain parts, that's going to be affected. But again, I go back to the number one driver and impact is the uncertainty, the ability to hire, to expand, to invest. Until we know what's happening, that's going to be a huge impact, and we could see a major pullback.
And like you said, this is really going to impact everyone. It's going to impact people on the couch right now watching this program. How is it going to impact the consumer? How is it going to impact just seriously like every single person?
Yeah, and this is all playing out. Tell folks, don't panic. We got to see how this plays out over time. But I think what we can expect is likely higher prices as these tariffs start to settle in. So the cost of everything from electronics to clothing to your food could possibly go up even further. Reduced purchasing power, meaning as inflation rises, our dollar doesn't go as far. So that dollar you have, it's not going to stretch as far as it used to. And then probably the biggest concern, in my view, as a business expert, as a business owner, as someone who is active in the financial markets, is job security. As companies start to show uncertainty and have restraint in hiring and expanding, if they start to pull back, that means those of us who are in business, you have clients who say, you know what, I'm not going to do as much work with you this year. If you work for a business, maybe you're not getting as much demand in sales, and so they start to cut jobs. That's the biggest concern I have. But again, this is not something that I think we're going to see today or next week. It's something that's going to play out over the weeks and months ahead of us.
It's the long game here.
Yeah.
My last question for you, with less than a minute left, do you have any advice for anybody?
Yeah, first and foremost, don't panic.
Yeah, right? I can't say that enough.
Right. Well, because I think when it comes to these types of things, you tend to have a knee-jerk reaction. You just, oh my gosh, everything's going crazy. Don't panic is the first big advice. But if you're in business, if you're a consumer, if you're an investor, assess your risk. Be prepared. Yeah, conserve some cash, be a little more cautious with your spending, build up a reserve if you haven't done that. And if you're in the investment world or you're trading stocks, you have a retirement account you're concerned about, talk to your financial advisor so that you're making prudent decisions. But again, don't panic. Know that this will play out over time, and hopefully, we'll get to a more stable place where our economy can grow again.
Yeah, don't panic. I like that. We'll remember that.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And of course, there is so much more to talk about, so we will continue the conversation tomorrow when you join us in the morning as well. We got 2 days of Ryan Frazier. How about it?
I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you so much,
Lauren.
Ryan.